Now you should see that it's being recorded. Do you see that?
I see that.
Okay, so the serenity prayer is this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to take the recording off for that because that's all that I. Okay, so the recording is back on. So talking about the Fibonacci numbers,
Mhm.
and what we talked about up to this date, we talked about chaos. If you break this, we folded this paper and it looks very chaotic at random. But if you look at it more carefully, you see it's a repeating pattern. So we took one piece of paper and we folded it over, and we see that what we have is ridge, valley, ridge, and that was the very first pattern of this fold, was a ridge, valley, and a ridge. We took another piece of paper and we folded it twice, and we revealed the next part of the pattern, ridge, valley, valley, ridge, and that was the next part of this pattern of chaos simplified into its elementary parts. And then we looked at something called Fibonacci numbers, and what we see is that when you look at issues from several points of view, it reveals hidden structure. So according to this, if you look at the Fibonacci numbers, the 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so forth, the relationship of 1 divided by the 1 before it, and if you keep on doing that, you start to get a ratio. 13, the number before that is 8. 13 divided by 8 is 1.625. And you start to get a ratio that gives you what's called a golden triangle.
Mhm.
And a golden triangle is a pattern that you see everywhere in nature. And you see it in architecture, and it's very pleasing to the eyes. And if you look at page 22, you start to see the patterns in nature. And if you look at the spirals in nature, that daisy would have a Fibonacci number. I haven't counted it up, but it might be, what are the Fibonacci numbers? It might have 21, or it might have 34 petals.
Mhm.
But you're going to find that there is a spiral, a mathematical nature. Here's the spiral of a galaxy, and the spiral of a galaxy follows the same mathematics as the spiral of a hurricane. And the mathematics are very similar. So what's happening is that there is, look at a pineapple, and if you can look, you're going to find, I think there's either 8 or there's 13 spirals of architecture of a pineapple. So what you're going to find is that there are patterns in nature that keep repeating themselves. That what you're going to find is that there is an internal structure that when you reveal the simplicity of the structure, you have control over infinity, and you can predict in infinity what is next. And when you uncover the underlying structure, so let me give you a test on this. So write this down: 0, T, T, F, F, a blank line, and a blank line. So write that down.
All right.
O, T, T, F, F. What are the next 2 letters? When you uncover the underlying structure, you will see the next 2 letters. So take a shot, take a guess. What are the next 2 letters?
Um,
Take a look at that. What are the next 2 letters?
OTTFF. Oh God.
Well, tell me how you're approaching this.
I don't know how to approach it.
Okay, but you see, it looks complicated, it looks hard right now,
Yeah.
and you might even be ready to say you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't solve it. But that's just an approach. Remember in the office when we did the 6 pens
Yeah.
and formed the 4 equal sized triangles?
Yeah.
Well, the issue was, hold on, I have to get out of this. I can't see okay. The issue was it was an approach. When you change your approach,
Yeah.
it was easy to solve. Same thing here. So here's when you identify the underlying structure, you'll have the answer. So here's what these letters stand for. They're the first letter of the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what would the next letters be?
8, 13.
Well, the next letters would be what?
E and T.
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the sequence. What number would come next? What's the first letter of the number?
Or 6.
Yeah, so S, what comes next?
7.
Yeah, S. So you see how easy that is?
Yeah.
When you uncover the underlying pattern, you master it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You can go to infinity with this because now you know what the underlying pattern is. All right, so what I'm going to give you right now is the underlying pattern, the underlying structure for thought mastery. We're not going to finish all this today, but I'm going to give you an underlying pattern. So here we go. You ever have this happen? You ever see this?
What? Cop in my rearview mirror? No.
Well, you don't drive, but if your dad saw this or your mom saw this, you think they might have a reaction?
Sure.
Probably so, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what we're talking about is right here. There is a book that I'm going to be sending you, that I want you to read a page a day.
All right.
Don't worry. It's just 1 page a day.
Mm.
Don't worry about it yet. I'll put it in the mail and we can talk about it on one of our next call. But this, let me make sure that I have your address as the 2215 Windward Lane, right?
2, 3.
2315?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, somebody would have gotten your book. 2315 Windward Lane.
Yep.
In Newport Beach, 92660.
Yes.
How in the world did I foul that one up? Okay, well, I'll get that corrected. Anyway, what I'm going to give you is that system, the elementary system, the template to simplify how you're thinking. When you master this, everything is better because how you think affects how you feel. That affects what you do.
Yeah.
What you do also affects how you think. In fact, it's all the way around.
Mm.
What you do affects how you feel, which affects how you think. It's all both circles, both directions. So the three main parts of the brain, this person is looking to the right. They're facing the right as you look at this. The spinal cord goes fast to the limbic area of the brain, which is your emotional area of the brain.
Mm.
That's fast. You get triggered no matter what. Fast, and it's for safety. It takes a little bit more time and more effort to have your rational mind, the outer cortex, involved in how you feel and how you think and what you do. But we can train this to include more of that rational mind, because here's what we want to do. Something happens to you.
Mm.
That's the stimulus.
Yeah.
What we want to do is create a space, and so that you don't overreact to something, but you choose the most appropriate response. That's healthy. This is maturity. This is conserving energy so that you don't have to fight yourself being upset about something that happened. Because being upset about something that happened doesn't influence the outcome.
Mm.
It only has you do a 2-for-1. A 2-for-1 means that not only are you upset about, not only did something happen, but you're also upset about it. So I'm going to give you one skill today. We're going to review, we'll see how we do on time, but let's review the lessons of the 3 circles that we already talked about. But before we do that, take a look at this and tell me what you see. What do you see? What's it mean?
I see two differently raced people of different genders.
Okay. What's it mean? What do you see? What's it mean?
Just kind of like a "why can't we be friends" statement.
Okay. For a minute, I was going to think, oh my God, what a great response. But then you got suckered in. Okay. So the reality is that you can't answer what this is mean. The only thing that you can do is you can do as you started out by saying you see two children, different ones. You see a black boy, you see a white girl. You see the girl's arm is on the boy's shoulder. You see the girl is blonde, has blue eyes. That's all you can say. And what does it mean? You can't answer what does it mean, because where does it say let's all be friends? That is a narration. So here's the first, what we talked about, and this would have been February 4th, daybook concept. And the daybook is that book, excuse me, the book I'm going to send you. We've talked about this, but let me give you the visuals for it. 3 circles. The first circle, something happens. Coach says this. Harris does this.
Yeah.
Your dad, your mom, something. Kids, something happens. That's the first circle. The second circle, you know what goes in there? Do you remember?
Response.
That's right. You make up a story about what it means. You give it a narration. And then the third response is you live your life as if that's true. And I'll show you sometime that I'm on the elliptical in the gym. When I go in the gym, this is really sacred time for me. I want to listen to educational videos. So I got something on YouTube on, and these 2 Chinese girls, I call them frickin' frack. I look to see where they are, and I go as far away from them as I can, because they chit, 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 chat. That's all they do is just talk nonstop, loud. So I go in the gym this day, I don't see them anywhere. So I go to where there is only one piece of the equipment that I want to use, and then it's followed by other stuff. And sure enough, they come on the 2 pieces of equipment next to me. And what do they start doing? Yap, 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 yap. And something happens. Something happened is frickin' frack are talking loud, laughing, talking. I give it meaning. What's wrong with them? Don't they see that I've got headsets on, that I'm watching a video? Don't they have any I give this meaning, and I live my life as if what I'm saying is true, that they're inconsiderate, that they don't care for, they're unaware of anything else. Now, I'm doing a 2 for 1. The 2 for 1 is not only does something bad happen, but I'm also upset about it. So we want to be very careful about the meaning that we give to something, because the reality is, and we talked about this last time about quantum physics, is that reality is in our mind. What we choose to pay attention to is what our reality is. I can choose to perceive this any way I want. I can interpret this. What happened is what happened. They're chatting away. I can look at it like they're in a good mood, like they're good friends. I can look at it as if somebody was going to die and they've recovered. I mean, there's all kinds of meaning that I can give this so that I'm not upset about it. That's the lesson. So let me give it to you another way. I'm going to give you another structure, and then I'll give you a shortcut, and that'll be the content for this call, and I'll share this with your parents. So it's called rational emotive therapy is what it's called. And REBT means rational emotive behavioral therapy. So just go ahead and take some notes on this, but you can shortcut your notes because this is in your notebook on page, I think it's 24, but I might be wrong. I'll never doubt myself again. It is page 24. So rational emotive therapy. So underneath the A, write down the word situation. Something occurs. And most people think that the something that occurred leads to how we feel and how we act.
Yeah.
Leads to the feeling any action. For example, you're in traffic. Did you hit some traffic coming home from your game in San Fernando?
A little.
Well, you're in traffic. And the statistics are that the average motorist loses 93 hours a year to congestion. So many times, you ever see road rage? There was Joe McKnight, the football player from USC. He was a running back for the New York Jets. He got murdered. He got killed because of road rage. Take that first circle. Something happened. Or go back to A situation. Something happened. And the guy got enraged, and Joe McKnight was enraged. It led to him being killed. But this is not how it happens. What happens is this. So I'll get that in a second, but think about the things that have happened that have made you upset. So tell me some things that have happened. This should be duplicate because you're keeping a thought record, remember, right?
Yeah.
And I want you to journal when you remember these things, but tell me some other things. What was it with Harris about the double standard? What happened there?
Just the fact that he constantly skips practices. You know, he's missing.
Oh, he does?
Oh yeah, he's gone all the time.
Well, there's two things. There's an excused miss and there's an unexcused miss. Are they excused?
No one knows.
Okay.
You don't ask. It's the coaches that.
Well, that's right. But think about that. All right, that's a circumstance. You're busting your rear end to be there all the time.
Yep.
First circle, something happens. Harris misses practice. Does that lead to how you feel and how you act? Well, we're going to look at that. What else has happened that's upset you in the past?
How coaches have gone from giving me time for playing hard and doing my job in practice to playing the players who are only going to help Dominic on the court rather than try to win and help the team excel at what they need to.
Okay. So time versus help Dominic. And so what happens is, if you look at this and, when I do this with adults, it's their kids, it's their spouse, their clients, somebody's rude, they're in traffic, somebody lies to them, somebody no-shows, somebody's unreliable. Now, the key is to understand this. This is the key. When these things happen, it leads to the 4 excessive emotions. So in that circle in the center of your page 24,
yeah,
just draw some lines off of that circle so that you have this is actually called a mind map. So it looks like this. Can you see? I can't see my camera.
I see.
Okay. So, and then right in there, the 4 excessive emotions are anger, depression, anxiety, and guilt. When people feel depressed, it's because right here, this formula that you're seeing right here, something's happened. They have this narration about what's going on, and they have the 4 excessive emotions: anger, depression, anxiety, and guilt. They feel that it's terrible, it's horrible, and it's awful, and they do what's called make it catastrophic. It's absolutely catastrophic. So here's what is really going on. Something happens, the A, you go to B. B is your underlying irrational beliefs. And that leads to how you feel and how you act. What happened didn't lead to how you felt. What happened led to your thinking that's irrational. Thinking about the way you think things should be. It's unfair. It's this person shouldn't be doing that. So let's look at some irrational beliefs. I must be treated fairly at all times. And when I'm not, it's terrible, it's horrible, it's awful, somebody's going to pay. Other people must always tell the truth and do what they say they will do. This really triggers me. When my wife says she's going to do something and she doesn't do it, I get triggered unless I have a technique to create a space in between the stimulus and the response. For example, I have a little toiletry bag in my gym bag. And I've had it for a lot of years, and I like it. And it holds my shaving cream and my razor and everything else. And it was ripped. So I asked my wife if she would sew it. And she said she would. And I brought it out of the car and I put it on the table. I go to get it the next day. Guess what? She never sold it. And I get upset. When I get upset, there's a value that was not being honored. And the value was other people must always tell the truth and do what they say what they will do. Well, that's an irrational belief. What are some others? I must be thoroughly competent in everything I do. A perfect solution to my problems must exist. I must be liked, loved, and respected, approved by everyone I come into contact with. And if I'm not, it's terrible, it's horrible, it's awful. I'm going to have anxiety, anger, depression, guilt. It's catastrophic. Or if I'm rejected, or if I fail, someone deserves to be blamed, and to be punished. And sometimes that person is myself. So this is another example of more concrete to the three circles. Something happens, I interpret it, I make it mean something, I make up a story about it. These are what drives that story. So here's what we're going to do. We go from C to D. And on D, what we're going to do is dispute. What are we going to dispute? We're going to dispute our underlying irrational beliefs, and we're going to form a new philosophy. So we dispute. When we form a new philosophy, we change how we feel and how we act. So we dispute. I should have another arrow that goes from D to B. We dispute the underlying irrational belief, and we form a new philosophy. Here's the structure of how to do this, and then I'm going to give you a shortcut. The structure is this. Although I would prefer blank, I understand that not all people blank, and it's not terrible, horrible, and awful when
blank.
Whatever it is. All right, although I would prefer that the same standards are held for all players, including the so-called superstar, I understand that not all people will do that. We'll hold the same people to all the same standards, and it's not terrible, horrible, and awful when they don't. I would prefer that my wife does what she said she would do, but I understand that she's not always going to do that, and it's not terrible, horrible, and awful when she doesn't.
Yeah.
And so if you practice this is an example of what I was talking about with the thought record, because this is an example of something happened and you identify how you're thinking about it, and then you take an opposite point of view.
Mm-hmm.
The first key to this is to be aware. And then once you're aware, then you can have an intervention and take an opposite point of view. That is the absolute key. And so here's a shortcut. You ready for the shortcut?
Sure.
This is all you need to remember. Turn frustration into fascination. That's it. That is it. Isn't it fascinating that your coach has an orientation about what's best for this superstar than it is for the team? Period. Isn't it fascinating? Turn frustration into fascination. And that is the absolute key. And if you do that, then all of a sudden you're going to see some really exciting stuff. Because what it means is that you will have a buffer that nobody can make you upset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have this automatic bias towards negativity.
Yeah.
From a genetic predisposition, from caveman, it favors being negative. We have a negativity bias. It favors being negative by looking up and seeing this and responding as if it's that. This saves lives. We don't have the option of thinking, is that a kitty? Is that can hurt me? Is that what it, we better react right now with the worst case scenario. Unfortunately, this carries along with us in everything else that's happening in our life. We take the worst case scenario as a default. It's pattern recognition and it favors survival. What do you see there?
A dog.
See how our brain works? We take incomplete information and we recognize, we make meaning. We make meaning, we see patterns. Well, when you're not doing something to train yourself to keep this peace of mind, this is what frustration does. it changes the heart rate rhythm. You can't have a peak performance zone when you're in frustration.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to automate the thought records that you're learning about opposite points of view. Your brain is going to take the easiest path. If you're out there walking in the forest and you see a path, your brain, you're going to take that because it's easiest. It's easiest for our brains to be negative. We have a 5-to-1 ratio of neurons, brain cells, dedicated to negativity for survival. But let me show you one last thing. You can rewire your brain and you can create habits on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this is the emotional area. When this area is triggered, you're not going to be in your peak performance zone. But your brain is forming connections moment by moment by moment. This is a memory I just showed you right there. And so negative thoughts are automatic. You have to practice, drill, and rehearse to have a positive outlook. So what I'm saying is don't get down on yourself when you start to feel negative, because that's the way you're genetically coded. That's the way you should. But you can practice and rewire your brain. So you're going to wind up with a great advantage over anybody else, because you're going to rewire your brain for the optimal state of performance. Your attitude will be optimized.
Mm-hmm.
You'll optimize your physical body for your maximum state of performance.
Mm-hmm.
And in a short period of time, you will be able to do the best that you could possibly do just by snapping your fingers. And that's an anchor for a peak performance state. But look at this. Here's the application. Something happens, the stimulus. There's a built-in response. And that built-in, the stimulus is that line right here. The built-in response is right here.
Yeah.
And this is the bias towards negativity, and it's going to lead to resistance, resentment, and revenge. You're going to get mad. You're going to get pissed. But watch what happens when you implement this. Something happens, and you respond with frustration to fascination. Isn't it fascinating that Harris never passes? Isn't it fascinating that the coach does this? Now you're building in a different response. When you didn't have that response before, but just by your thought, you're changing your brain wiring, and you have a new response. It gets thicker, and the old response, the old habit, will what's called synaptic pruning. It's going to atrophy. You never had, you see, you didn't have this response. You just had this down here. You're rewiring your brain. So that's what I wanted to share you here, is that you're rewiring your brain based on the application of emotional regulation that we've been talking about. I'm going to stop the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Bear with me just a second. And I will share this